Okay, so let's talk about theme and symbolism or symbol and figurative language. So let's start with theme. And of course, you have chapters in your book on this. Let me tell you what the pages are. Theme is going to be um, mhm, 383. Now be careful with this because there is a theme section, chapter 383, which is also actually chapter 6. So chapter 6 it refers to the fiction. We also have this whole thing on theme and tone for poetry. You're not reading the poetry chapter, you're reading the fiction chapter. So that is chapter 6. So theme is the large idea attached to the text you're reading. It is important that you don't confuse theme and subject. So, the birthmark, the one that I said is optional, that's about this guy who's a scientist who marries like the most beautiful girl in town, but she's got this weird, well, not weird, she's got a charming birthmark on her face, you know? Some men think it enhances her beauty, but because he's a scientist and he's a perfectionist, he wants to remove this beauty mark, right? So, one second. Hi.
Oh, okay. Hi.
You made such good time. I am still recording, but
I tried. Hi, Casey.
you did awesome.
Thank
Sorry, that was my roommate. Okay, so he wants to remove her beauty mark because he thinks he can do it. Because he's a man of science, but also he's like obsessed with perfection, right? The subject of that would be a different thing than the theme, right? The subject is not the plot. It's not the. I mean, I'm sorry. The theme is not the plot, and it's not the subject or the people or the characters in the story. It's the idea of that all of those other components support, right? So an obsession with perfection might be part of that theme. Maybe that perfection can't exist in an imperfect world would be part of that theme. But the subject, the plot is not the theme. So make sure your book does a great job of distinguishing the difference between those two. But when we're thinking about theme, we're really thinking about these kind of bigger abstract concerns and ideas in the world. Big ideas. Your theme shouldn't be so specific that it excludes some of the major parts of the story. But it shouldn't be so general that, like I said, it's a subject or just like simple, right? A theme is something you can unpack and write an entire essay about. So, like I said, theme in your book is page 383. Let's see how far I want you to read. I think that chapter is super short. It's only like 2 pages. So you would be reading. This book is so irritating to navigate. 383 to 387, say. On 387, a new story begins that you are not reading. Well, you can if you want, but you're not assigned it. All right, let's go to symbol and figurative language. So 334, chapter 5. It's interesting the way the book sets things up. I think I would put theme before symbol and figurative language because I find that symbol and figurative language are usually the things that support these ideas around the theme. But they have you learning about that first. So let's try this. Oh no, that was too far. Come on. Okay, here we go. So symbol and figurative language, as I said, starts on page 334. This is a bit longer of a chapter, chapter 5. You're going to read all the way down through page 338. Oh, actually, it's not longer. There's just more words on the page. Okay, so symbol and figurative language. read this whole chapter. A symbol is something that represents something else. So the theme, we just talked about what the theme of the birthmark might be. The birthmark itself is a symbol of that theme. Okay, so the birthmark is the birthmark, right? But it also represents his desire for perfection. It also represents this idea that, like I said, perfection doesn't exist in this world, right? So a symbol can be a literal object in a story and also have this figurative, symbolic import, significance to the story. Figurative language. There's entire, really long, exhaustive, super thorough and useful list of figurative language. We will probably be talking mostly about allusion, irony, metaphor, and personification, simile, and symbol. We won't be going into metonymy, which I don't think I ever say correctly very much. We're not going to really be discussing that. And then, of course, also allegory. Sorry, the first one that I skipped. So, but I want you to focus your attention, read the whole list and make sure you have a grasp of everything. But I want you to really focus your attention on metaphor, simile, symbol. Those will, and personification and illusion, those will actually help you, even though they're talking about these in the context of fiction. When we get to your poetry unit, which is next, it's after you turn in your essay, we will be relying heavily on a pretty strong understanding of those literary elements and how they work in poetry. So prepare yourself for that by making sure you understand how it works in fiction now. Your book, for some reason, calls figurative language figures of speech, which doesn't really make sense to me because figures of speech is a totally different thing. But they'll explain to you why they do. I still don't understand. But yeah, read all of this. There's not too much more I want to say to you about it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it is very detailed. So it will be best for you to read this on your own and ask me questions if you have questions, rather than me reading it to you or going through it right now. I didn't even share my screen with you, did I? Well, you have the book. If you don't have the book, you know what to do. Email me and we'll figure something out. Okay, I don't want that. I think that's all I have to say about theme and figurative language and symbol. I want you to read these 3 stories, or 4 if you choose to read the birthmark, looking for how the elements of figurative language, like metaphor, like simile, like symbol, like imagery, which is usually, that's descriptive language that's image-based, that's used to kind of set up a symbol often, or set up a metaphor, right? How do all of those things support the theme? So as you read all the stories, the one you like the most, I'm not asking for this as a formal assignment. You're not turning this into me, but I want you to do this as a thought exercise. The one you like the most, I want you to try to identify theme, and I want you to try to identify the literary elements that support why the theme is the theme, right? Because if you really resonate with one of these stories, that kind of thinking will help prepare you for the essay if you choose to write about one of these stories. All right, have a great week. Let me know if you have questions. I will be in touch with you about your response pages if you have not heard from me already. Once again, with those response pages, people are doing a great job. Thank you so much for the effort you're putting in. And most people are super punctual, which I really appreciate. And it's making my life a lot easier. So thank you. Let's keep that up. And I will see you soon.